Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Friday, January the Friday, January the 16th, 2026. Hopefully, everybody's had a good week this week, as we're wrapped up another week here. I guess you could say that. I guess it's a second full week, third week in total. I guess. 5 Fridays this month here. Um, So, of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in before we get started. Friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So today I did watch some cartoons from September of 1944, of course, including Pitching Woo at the Zoo, Popeye cartoon in which zookeeper Bluto tried to once again steal Olive away from Popeye. We got a chance to see what they call tonic immobility, which is the idea that if you stroke an animal's stomach in a certain way, you can get them just totally relaxed and pretty much just make them immobile, make them just that relaxed to where they're just. There's that one. There's one of the censored 11, Goldilocks and the Jiving Bears. Um, Little Lulu, caught in troubles again. Actually, we see little Lulu getting spanked at the beginning of the episode. Um, uh, um, we had the fox and the crow trying to love each other as they were neighbors. Love it more in a platonic sense, of course. Um, the whole idea of loving thy neighbor kind of thing with a radio. Um, and of course, we saw the whole idea of Donald Duck trying to um, make an airplane out of plastic only for it to melt on him or dissolve away once it got wet. And Goofy was showing us how to play football. Those are some of the cartoons I was watching today. Oh, and of course, a Mighty Mouse cartoon. Um, let's see. Oh, the two barbers, in which he was helping out a human and a mouse barber, basically. Um, so now we're coming up on 4 minutes. I guess I'll talk about what's on tap for today. So, got a couple of articles from BTV Tunes. One of them talking about the passing of composer Guy Moon, who I guess was the guy who composed some of the '90s cartoons music, including, of course, Two Stupid Dogs, Fairly Odd Parents, and some other classic cartoons from the Danny Phantom, other classic cartoons from, I guess, the '90s, early 2000s. And then we also will find out a little bit why Daphne's look from Scooby Doo was changed for the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo cartoon. And then we'll in the wrestling wrap up today, we'll look back at last night's Thursday night Impact, which did not apparently go over well, to say the least. A lot of criticism on the show. Now, from what I found out, this SmackDown was actually aired today live, so we'll actually be going straight into the results today. I'm not just gonna just go over the card, but we'll actually talk about the results, and then look ahead. Of course, look ahead to tomorrow night's Collision. Get caught up on some of the as we've heard about some more signings and departures and signings among of course the big three between WWE, AEW, and TNA. Not as much WWE, but more TNA and AEW. There's just been a lot of fluidity going back and forth, and then we will, of course, wrap things up with this day in each history. Again, a friendly reminder as always, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, as we just hit the 6-minute mark, I guess I'll go ahead and get started here on go right into the articles here. The article that we're going to look at. All right, so the first one will be about Guy Moon here. Let's take a look here. All right, so R.I.P. Guy Moon, composer of The Fairly Odd Parents, Two Stupid Dogs, and other classic cartoons. The composer behind The Fairly Odd Parents, Danny Phantom, many other cartoon theme songs will be dearly missed. He was 63 years old. Of course, it's got a lot of stuff I believe this guy worked on was done in the 90s and early 2000s. So, so for those of you who grew up in those time periods, you probably would be more familiar with his work than I would. I'm more from the 80s and 70s and 80s, but anyways, and early 90s. So, anyways, article was published January 12th, which was, of course, this past Monday by me TV and staff. So let's take a look here. Guy Moon, the Emmy-nominated composer, passed away on January 8th. He was 63. Fans and fellow animators remember Moon as a legend in the world of cartoon soundtracks. He was especially known for his work with Butch Hartman. Moon and Hartman met while working on Johnny Bravo. There's another one. While Hartman recalled, in parentheses, Moon's amazing attitude, kindness, warmth, overall sense of fun, not to mention the incredible musical talent he possessed, were evident from the start. From there, Moon and Hartman collaborated on The Fairly Odd Parents, with Moon composing fan favorite songs like Icky Vicky and My Shiny Teeth and Me. Interesting, to say the least. Moon's journey into music animation began with his first credit playing the synthesizer on An American Tail. Another fun fact, he played the keyboard for the soundtrack of the beloved classic film, The Land Before Time. From here, he worked as a musician and orchestrator. So his career goes back even to the late 80s because let's see, An American Tail, I believe, came out in the 86, 88 around there, and then Land Before Time was, I think, late 80s, early 90s as well. Booking his first composing gig on Square Pegs. He composed the music and theme songs for many classic cartoons over the last 40 years. From 1986, including Two Stupid Dogs, The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest, Cave Kids, The Addams Family animated series. I believe that was probably the 90s animated series. Cow and Chicken, Ren and Stimpy, Chalk Zone, The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and many more. In short, if you enjoyed a cartoon on Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network in the early 2000s, Guy Moon was likely behind the music. which was the impression of, which even before the author said that, I was beginning to get that impression. And a lot of the stuff a lot of the cartoons he was working on were probably from Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. Let's see. Moon and Hartman continued their friendly collaboration on shows like Danny Phantom, Tough Puppy, Bunsen is a Beast, Hobby Kids Adventures, and most recently, the Garden Cartoon. Quote, to say he was a huge part of my career journey is an understatement, Hartman said on X. He wasn't just part of it, he was fused with it. There's no, quote, Butch Hartman show, unquote, without Guy Moon. His music was involved in everything, and I mean everything I've done professionally. Every episode, every song, every note, it was all him. Let's see. Tara Strong, the voice actor behind Timmy Turner, had worked with Moon since The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. Shared her condolences to Moon's family, to Moon's family's announcement. Quote, Guy was beyond brilliant. He was always kind, funny, and an absolute dream to work with. Every time we had a Guy Moon session, we were all over the moon. Family announced his passing on Saturday, January 10th. He will be missed. Oh, there we go. All right. So, anyways, now to kind of move along to the next story here. This next story is involving, of course, Daphne Blake of Scooby-Doo fame. So why does Daphne look so different in the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo? Something's different about Daphne. Now, the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo was the Scooby-Doo series that came out in 1986. Of course, introduced us to the characters of Vincent Van Ghoul and Flim Flam, where Shaggy and Scooby unlocked the Ghost of Demons, and then they had to go and recover all the demons. So you had basically the cast of Daphne, Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy, and Flim Flam all working together. Article published January 15th, which is, of course, yesterday by me, DVD and staff. So yeah. I mean, her hair was more permed. She didn't have the headband there, the hairband or whatever. Actually, if anything, they kind of made her look older. They made her look more like a usually in Scooby Doo, I think the general consensus is the kids and Freddy, Daphne, Shaggy, Velma, they were all probably like about, if I had to guess, throughout most of their time together, they were about like 17, 18 years old. Obviously, they were of driving age because you could see that, both at throughout certain points in the series, both Freddy and Shaggy would drive the Mystery Machine. So they would have had to at least been 16, but I would guess they were probably like late high school, early college age, 17, 18, 19 throughout most of the series. Here, she looks like she's already in her like 20s, like early 20s. Let's see what the author has to say on this one. And again, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Let's see. Daphne Blake is one of the most consistent members of Mystery Inc., appearing in more Scooby-Doo spin-offs than Velma and Fred. Part of Daphne's consistency is her character design. Long red hair, purple dress, green scarf. Some minor tweaks have been made from series to series, but there is the general blueprint of Daphne. Well, basically, they all five of them had appeared through every series up through the Scooby Doo show. By the time they got to the new Scooby Doo Mysteries, that's when they started shaving it down. That Scooby and Scrappy Doo. That would it would basically get down to like Shaggy and Scooby and Scrappy, and then Daphne would rejoin them later. So, let's see. That was until the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo premiered in 1985. All right, 1985. A new series following Daphne, Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy as they hunted escaped ghosts from the Himalayan mountains. At the beginning of the first episode, we see Daphne take the controls from Shaggy and crash land their falling plane into a village. But something was different about Daphne. Daphne suddenly had a Sabrina Duncan-style rounded pageboy haircut, a purple jumpsuit, and a totally different face. If Daphne were a real person acting on a TV show, rumors would be spreading like wildfire, speculating if she resorted to plastic surgery or witchcraft to make her look like Twiggy. I don't. Again, my thoughts on the look there, as we just looked at her. I just simply think they aged her up a little bit. I think they made her a little older. Throughout Scooby. Oh, hey, Metal. Does driving age really matter if at times the dog had the had the steering wheel? Yeah, I guess. I think that would be more a special question than anything else there, Metal. Because dogs usually can't get driver's licenses, but you make an interesting point there. But my point in that is that they're talking about how her look changed for the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo from a prior series. And when you look at her and you compare, so look, just for a moment, take a look at her, right? Take a look. I have that portion of the thing up there. Look at her face. Look at her overall physical appearance there, and then think back to how she looked, basically throughout the other series, from Scooby Doo, Where Are You, all the way up through um, up through the new Scooby Doo mysteries and Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo show. All right, for the most part, they're always depicted as, well, they were always called kids by some of the other cast members, depicting that they were younger, right? Now, obviously, you know, you had Fred and Shaggy, who each had the wheel at times, and even Daphne here at times had the wheel in the series too. So they would have had to been what would have been even back in 1960s though, I think some states, the more rural states, would have had 14 as a, but I always got the idea that they were probably around 17, 18, 19 throughout most of the series. That was always my impression. In other words, they obviously weren't like younger high schoolers, they were like older high schoolers, you know, even though we never saw them go to school, probably in the like senior high school, maybe early college age level, age range there. But let's see. Let's see what you have to say here. The only thing that is really different is her style, i.e., hair, clothes, and now she has the whites of her eyes. They used to live it skin tone. They used to live it skin tone. Um, Again, my impressions here is in terms of how I think they just, to me, she looks older. To me, she just looks older. Leave it skin toned. My impression is the changes they made here in her appearance just overall made her look a little older. Like if they were let's just go with my theory here that they were like 17, 18, 19 during most of the Scooby-Doo series, right? Whether it's Scooby-Doo Where Are You, new Scooby-Doo movies, um, the Scooby-Doo show, the new Scooby-Doo mysteries, Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. Um, no matter um, no matter which of those shows they were, if they were all like 17, 18, 19, if we're just going on that theory right there, that they were probably like 17, 18, 19. Here she looks like she's in her early 20s. She looks like maybe she's like 20 to 22, which would by extension maybe make Shaggy 20 to 22. You know, um, I don't know. To me, she looked a bit younger in 13 Ghosts, but I chalk that up mostly to the art style slowly evolving. All right, so I think more by hairstyle, I guess, is what I would probably go by. In terms of the hairstyle, to me looks more like that of like an older person, like an adult. But let's get back to the article here. And I did it. I do enjoy the back and forth here. I do enjoy the back and forth here, Metal. So a nice way to kind of get things going here in terms of talking about it. But anyways, thankfully, Daphne's voice actor for 13 Ghosts was Heather North, who had been playing Daphne for 15 years, providing a vocal consistency with previous portrayals of Daphne. But why the sudden change to danger-prone Daphne's appearance? One theory is that Daphne is the most fashion-minded member of Mystery Inc., and while Shaggy could always wear a green or red T-shirt, someone who cares about trends would change their outfits with the times. And that comment about the red T-shirt, there was another article they did a while back. Why did Shaggy wear red T-shirts in like the Scooby Doo movies of the late '80s? Um, but anyways, it makes sense that in an 80s show, she would have a more 80s look. Well, I mean, that's true. If they could make the argument that out of fashion, maybe she adjusted with the time. You Also, I think for me, the perception of style since 13 Ghosts fashion was closer to today. The original series seems like styles older generation would wear. It's kind of funny though. I think after 13 Goes, she did even in pup named Scooby Doo, she went back to starting with pup named Scooby Doo, and then with all the Scooby Doo movies, and I would even think in some of the more modern versions of Scooby Doo, she went back to her original look of the purple dress and all that. But anyways, fans compared the new Daphne look to Charlie's Angels, specifically Sabrina Duncan. But other fans looked to cartoon characters for the inspiration behind Daphne's sudden character design. Debbie from Speed Buggy, which actually that could work right there. Debbie had more of a like kind of a jumpsuit or what have you, and the hairstyle for Debbie and Speed Buggy was similar to Daphne's. And April O'Neil in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Debbie had the same hairstyle, but April O'Neil was more of a fashion inspiration, always wearing a yellow jumpsuit that was both sophisticated enough to wear for the evening news, but flexible enough to climb around the sewers while adventuring with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But okay, but with while it's probably true, and some people could argue that um, April had again a similar look to Daphne. You have to remember too, April was introduced after 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo because I believe, as I said at the beginning of the article here, 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo premiered in 1985. I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was something like 87, 88. So from more or less when I was um, a kid. I've always accepted the fashion argument. Daphne is a trendy person. If anyone in the gang changed styles, it should be her. hmm I mean, and again, as they're arguing here, that just seems to make the most sense. And I don't know. I don't know if you caught the previous article I did, metal. Um, but I also covered an article regarding the passing of Guy Moon, the guy who composed a lot of the music for particularly a lot of the stuff Nickelodeon Cartoon Network, like Two Stupid Dogs, Danny Phantom, and all that. So didn't know if you caught any of that particular portion of the article. The show. The comic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles debuted in 1984. Um, I'm familiar with him. All right. Um, didn't catch it. Yeah, well, they announced that he passed away, I guess, last Saturday at the age of 63. Um, so anyways, oh, and to your point about the whole idea, Yeah, but if I understand correctly, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was kind of more of an independent comic, so would not have been as wide, what may not have been as widely known as like Debbie from as Debbie from Speed Buggy. Um, Anyways, as we continue on here, let's see now. Let's see where we're. Oh yeah. Likewise, Daphne needed something to show her modern taste while also having free range to chase ghosts through the Himalayas. Whether you liked the Daphne redesign or not, it did not last long. After 13, and this is something I mentioned a few minutes ago. After 13 Ghosts, fans saw Daphne undergo another character design to her childhood self in 1988's A Pup Named Scooby Doo. Then, in 1998, movies like Scooby Doo on Zombie Island and Scooby Doo and the Witch's Ghost, Mystery Inc., are aged up to early adulthood in these movies. Um, Daphne is a journalist and trades her jumpsuit for a purple skirt suit, um, but her hair and face return to their normal design. Finally, in What's New Scooby Doo, What's New Scooby Doo premiered in 2002, and Daphne was finally back to her original design, green headband and all. Watch Scooby Doo on MeTV Tunes weekdays at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 Central, 1:30 Pacific, and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 Central, 7 Pacific. Yeah. The only thing is they did at least look at I think they did at least look at the fact her design was changed, but they didn't really give much of a full. Well, I think the main argument is, or the main theory is that to reflect the changing of fashion trends. I guess what they had argued there. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was already popular among the creative class before the cartoon made it popular with the general public. Okay. All right. Well, that's something new you learn every day. So let's see, 33 minutes, and I don't see any kind of um, I see any kind of um, let's see. Yeah, and I do know there's. Do I move on to the? Well, let's see. Actually, I'm gonna see if maybe I can try to find something. I'll try to find one more article here to go over. See what bounding in the comments may have to show for us here. I should probably just go ahead and save that. Yeah, yes. Let me see. I'm just trying to see if there's looking more for a shorty. Some of these articles I'm seeing right now are going to take me a little bit longer than this far. Already went over that one. I'm going to pose a counter theory. Archie Comics already had Betty and Veronica changed to those styles by then, and that was always an inspiration for Scooby Doo. Well, okay, you make a good point, and considering that, of course, Josie and the Pussycats, um, from Harvey Comics, also was another aside from Scooby Doo was another you know Hanna-Barbera cartoon production, Hanna-Barbera adaptation. So you know um, I can see the connection there. Um, well, Scooby Doo probably got inspired from another. I mean, well, Scooby Doo. If you think about it, I guess I don't need to look for because I think we're having a good conversation right now here. That should take us a few minutes to hash out and stuff. So just um, yeah, you know, Hanna Barbera and to maybe a slightly lesser degree Ruby Spears kind of started the whole those meddling kids genre of cartoons. Started, of course, with Scooby Doo, and then you had a number of others where you had a group of teenagers with a pet or something. You had, of course, as the aforementioned Josie and the Pussycats. Um, you had also, um, you know, basically you had where you had a group of teenagers and an anthropomorphic character, together going out solving mysteries. You had, let's see, you had Josie and the Pussycat, you had Jabberjaw, um, you know, um, you had the Funky Phantom, and then of course for Ruby Spears, I think you had like Fang Face. Um, Well, there were kind of a few like that where you had kind of that genre where you had basically a group of kids with an anthropomorphic anthropomorphic pet. Okay, so Scooby Doo was of course Scooby Doo. Um, Josie and the Pussycats, it was Sebastian the cat. Um, Speed Buggy, it was actually the car Speed Buggy with his little face and all that. Um, let's see, you had Jabberjaw. It was like Jabberjaw. So, um, in Funky Phantom, it was actually the spirit of a ghost from 1776. Clue Club, you had a couple of dogs in there. Um, let's see, the one dog would disappear, would be like a ghost dog, I think. Um, and then of course, you had let's see, Fang Face with the werewolf, the Fang Face and little Fang Face Junior or little baby Fang, who were so that whole genre was pretty popular, particularly in the 70s, and then of course and you did have like Archie's. They got their a bunch of their cartoon series in the late 60s and 70s, thanks to Filmation with the new Archie's TV Funhouse. Sabrina, the first Sabrina the animated series was done by Filmation. I'm not talking about the one from the 90s. There was actually one back in the early 70s. There was Sabrina and the Groovy Ghoulies um, by Filmation. So, So a lot of that, a lot of those type of shows were popular back then, But then, as we've seen, casting teens as protagonists has always been a popular move, whether that be in Western animation or an anime. We see it a lot in anime where you see teens as protagonists in the series. All right, so now we're coming up on 41 minutes. So I think I'm going to now move on to rest and wrap up. As we do have quite a bit to go over here. First off, one of the things that was announced after the Dynamite show on Wednesday on AEW Dynamite was that the Rascals, who had recently, all right, the Archies even had a song called "Feeling So Good." That's Scooby Doo, over a year before Scooby Doo released, and all these people knew each other. Well, again, well, I think a lot of the same voice actors worked both, or some of the same voice actors worked both series. So, but anyways, getting on to the wrestling report here, wrestling wrap up here. So it was announced, I guess, towards the end of AEW Dynamite that the Rascals of Zachary Wentz, Trey Miguel, Desmond Xavier, and Myron Reed, who had recently left TNA. In fact, it was originally promoted that Leon Slater was going to be defending the X Division title against Myron Reed at the at last night's AMC premiere. But we're going to go over that in a moment because there's been a lot of heat on that show. A lot of disappointment, let's just say, on that. But it was announced that the Rascals had signed with AEW. Among some of the other things that happened, Will Hobbs, has concluded his time in AEW with his last appearance for AEW going to be tomorrow night on Collision. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. But with that, let's take a look at what happened on last night's Impact. As I said, there was a lot going on there. That so the opening of last night's show saw AJ Styles make an appearance at the very beginning of the show, basically welcoming everybody to TNA. For the disappointing part being that, that was all he was coming out for. He did have some backstage segments with Mike Santana and Frankie Kazarian. They teased a possibility maybe AJ might come back to go after the TNA World Title at some point in the future. But again, there's just a lot of disappointment up and down the card for what all pretty much happened. Then you had Santino Marella come out, and ultimately it was introduced that the former Sonya Deville of WWE fame was signed to TNA as going by the name Dahlia Ray. Now the thing is here is that, and this is something I kind of agree with too. One of the guys that I watched on this in terms of top 10 wrestling talked about this too. The whole idea of this dueling authority figures, Dahlia Ray coming in as this kind of evil authority figure to be kind of, I didn't like it when they tried to pull it with Robert Stone. I don't, as a fan, I don't like it now. and I don't think a lot of fans were really. But aside from Dahlia Ray being signed to TNA, they also announced that she signed the former Cora Jade of WWE fame to a contract. Now Cora Jade, under her indie name of Elena Black, is now a TNA Knockout, part of the Knockouts division. And then after that, we get to the first match of the evening, which is a 6-man match, which probably was received pretty well. One of the big criticisms that for a 2-hour show, you only had 3 matches, and overall, the matches were not necessarily were not received as well, especially the second match, the middle match, the Knockouts World title, but we'll talk about that in a moment. The opening match saw a 6-man tag match. Saw Elijah team up with the TNA World Tag Team Champions, Jeff and Matt Hardy, to defeat Order 4 of Mustafa Ali, who was recently re-signed to the company, along with and he was part of the team with the great hands of Jason Hotch and John Schuyler, in kind of a prelude in part to Mustafa Ali and Elijah's match coming up. And we'll also talk about tomorrow's Genesis pay-per-view as there have been some major changes came about from that due to some visa issues with some of the talent who were not able to make it to last night's show or this Saturday's Genesis show. So then in the next segment, Santino Marella came back out and brought out Lei Yingling, and it was announced that now originally Danny Luna was set to challenge Lei Yingling for the TNA Knockout World title at tomorrow's Genesis pay-per-view. That unfortunately has been changed due to the fact that Danny Luna, apparently there was some visa issues, not just with her, but apparently also with Leon Slater and Lance Storm being unable to attend the event, from what I read. So now it was there was an open contract offered for Lei Yingling to defend the TNA Knockouts World title. And the person answers, and NXT's Sol Ruca and Zarya came out, talked about how they were scouting the tag teams to potentially challenge for the TNA Knockouts tag team titles. But then they decided to answer the call of this open challenge, with now Zarya set to take Zarya signing the contract and getting a chance to go after the TNA Knockouts World Championship. And speaking of knockouts, in a match for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championships, in a match that was really the Elegance brand of Heather and M by Elegance, with Ash by Elegance, Mr. Elegance, Perez Hilton, Personal Concierge in their corner, regained the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championship over the Inspiration of Cassie Lee and Jessie McKay, as it was reported that this was basically their last show with TNA at this point in time, because they had been working on a by-show basis, and they had not chosen to sign like a full-time contract. So the Inspiration is now gone from TNA. The Elegance brand have since reclaimed. But the big problems with this match wasn't necessarily the result. It was, one, there were like for an 8-minute match, there were like 2 commercials. So too much commercials. A big problem with the show is that the pacing and time management use of the show. They and then of course with all the interference by the Elegance brand and every member with with Heather and by Elegance, getting getting the winning, getting the titles back. Then you had another segment in which the system came out in preparation for JDC's final match this Sunday against Eddie Edwards, as he had announced late last year that he would be retiring after Genesis here, and it was also announced that his replacement will apparently be announced on next week's Impact. And the main event saw Mike Santana regain the TNA World Title over Frankie Kazarian, with Bully Ray on commentary. Just prior to the match, of course, Carlos Silver had come out, had introduced Dixie Carter, the former owner of TNA. She was not received well. A lot of people felt that TNA's failings were due in large part to her. Apparently, as Bully Ray was coming out to do guest commentary, they embraced and kind of they hugged and kind of, as some people were saying, buried the hatchet. So a lot of big news coming out of that show. Was not well received. There were some additions like Elena Black and Daria Ray. There was Dahlia Ray. Obviously, we talked about some of the departures that have happened over the past couple weeks here. And now we're going to move on to, of course, looking at today. Actually, there is one more thing I should go ahead and look at, which is, of course, looking ahead to, or looking back to last night's Ring of Honor, coming from the Esports Stadium, Arlington, in Arlington, Texas. Last night's Ring of Honor Club show, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. Saw in the opening match, saw in the tag team match, saw the grizzled young veterans of James Drake and Zach Gibson defeat the Spanish Announce Project of Angelico Serpentico. Lance Archer defeated Vin Parker in just under 2 minutes. Shane Taylor of Shane Taylor Promotions defeated Kieran Gray in just over 5 minutes. In a 8-man tag match, the Von Erichs, Marshall and Ross Von Erich, teamed with QT Marshall and Aaron Solo to defeat the frat house of Griff Garrison, Cole Carter, Jack Jameson, and Preston Vance. In a mixed 6-man tag match, the inventory of Trish Adora, Carly Bravo, and Sean Dean defeated Eminem TV of Mansoor, Mason Madden, and Taya Valkyrie in just over 7 minutes. In a women's world television title match, proving ground match, Red Velvet had fended off the challenge of Robin Renegade. This is a proving ground match, so if Robin Renegade had either been able to win the match or last the 10 minutes, she would have earned a shot at the Ring of Honor Women's World title. The main event saw the Swirl, the team of Blake Christian and Lee Johnson with Jay Lethal in their corner, defeat the team of Dark Order of Alex Reynolds and Evil Uno. Now, it was also just announced that Matt Taven has apparently left Ring of Honor and, by extension, All Elite Wrestling. But Matt Taven is out, so the only remaining member of the Kingdom as of this point is Mike Bennett. So, So that's all we got from that news. So now let's go ahead and take a look at what happened on today. Now, normally I'd just be talking about the card here, but due to the fact that this show actually did air earlier today, we're going to go over the results of SmackDown, which SmackDown occurred from the OVO Arena, Wembley in London, England, with Joe Tessitore and Corey Graves on commentary on the USA Network. So the opening match, so they were having a series of qualifying matches for the number one contendership to the WWE undisputed WWE, basically to see who would next challenge Drew McIntyre for the undisputed WWE title after Drew McIntyre having won the match from Cody Rhodes on last week's. Actually, it aired on Netflix earlier, but I guess it hasn't aired on USA Network. So actually, I should probably just do the. All right, so I'll do the results on Monday, but I will talk about the card had a bunch of qualifying matches for the number one contendership of the undisputed WWE title. See who would next challenge Drew McIntyre, and these matches include Randy Orton taking on The Miz, Matt Cardona taking on Trick Williams, Damian Priest set to take on Solo Sikoa, and in the main event, Sami Zayn taking on Ilya Dragunov. They're all number one contendership qualifying matches. We'll find out more about that. Other matches that are scheduled for today's SmackDown include former women's tag team champions Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair taking on women's United States champion Julia and Kiana James. Carmelo Hayes is set to defend the United States championship against TNA X Division champion Leon Slater. So even though he couldn't get back to the States in time, WWE used him. But there was actually some speculation that WWE did want to use him for the UK leg of the Road to Royal Rumble tour that's going to culminate on the 31st in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And then Jordan Grace takes on former women's United and former rival in TNA, Chelsea Green. Oh, that's all we got for the SmackDown tonight. Now, of course, to look ahead to tomorrow night's Collision. Tomorrow night's Collision coming from the Arizona Finance Theater. Of course, with Nigel McGuinness and Tony Schiavone on commentary. The ops of Powerhouse Hobbs, Samoa Joe, and Katsuyori Shibata are set to defend the AEW World Trios title against Hangman Adam Page and the team of Jet Speed of Speedball Mike Bailey and the Jet Kevin Knight. Andrade El Idolo will make his in-ring debut, taking on Angelico. Eddie Kingston and Ortiz are set to take on the grizzled young veterans of James Drake and Zach Gibson. Marina Shafir is set to take on Skyflight Zeta Steel in a match that was set up this past Wednesday night's Dynamite. The Don Callis family members of Josh Alexander, El Clone, and Kyle Fletcher will be taking on the male members of Skyflight of Scorpio Sky and Top Flight of Dante and Darius Martin. Megan Bain and Penelope Ford makes her in-ring return, coming back from injury, teaming with Megan Bain to take on the team of Danielle Camella and Viva Van. And the main event we'll see in a number one contendership match for the national title. Basically the winner of this match will be the next to challenge Ricochet for the national title. Jack Perry is set to take on Anthony Bowens in that regard. So, and finally, a final rundown of the look at a final rundown of tomorrow's Genesis pay-per-view. Get to that thing here. So the card is now set for tomorrow night's Genesis pay-per-view. Let's see now. Coming from the Curtis Colwell Center in Garland, Texas. The show is going to open up with Ryan Nemeth taking on Mara Sade. The match that was set up on last night's Impact. Also, you'll see Rich Swann taking on AJ Francis. As AJ Francis looks to get some revenge after Swann had put him through a table a couple weeks ago on Impact. And then one of the matches we'd already talked about for the TNA Knockout World title that was set up on last night's Impact, Thursday Night Impact. Lei Ying Lee will be defending the Knockout World title against Zarya of NXT with Sol Ruka in her corner. The Hardys, Jeff and Matt Hardy, defend the TNA World Tag Team Championships against the Righteous, Dutch and Vincent, in a match that's been in the weeks in the making here, as the Righteous have been kind of stalking the Hardys in a way. In his retirement match, JDC, Johnny Dingo Curtis, will be taking on Eddie Edwards. Mustafa Ali is set to take on Elijah in a one-on-one match. Originally, this was a three-way match for the X Division title with Leon Slater. Set to defend the title against Cedric Alexander and Moose here, as Moose would get his rematch, his contractual rematch, and Cedric Alexander earned a shot in a gauntlet match. But due to the visa issues, Leon Slater not being able to make the show, Joe Hendry has now been inserted in the three-way and just going to be a regular three-way between former TNA World Champion Joe Hendry, former TNA World Champion and X Division Champion Moose, and Cedric Alexander. The main event, which was set up after as a digital exclusive last night for the TNA World title, will be a Texas death match in which Mike Santana will be defending the title against Frankie Kazarian, with Nick Nemeth serving as special guest referee. There was some talk that Nick Nemeth, being one of the co-winners of the Gauntlet for the Gold, having the Gauntlet trophy, was considering cashing in his opportunity last night, but we might see that happen tomorrow night. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But that's all we got for the wrestling wrap up. So now, with today being, of course, Friday, January the 16th, 2026, Let's take a look back at this date in Nietzsche history. History! So, 1951, 2021, 1976, and 2016. All right. So first off, we're going to head back 75 years ago. And on this date, 75 years ago today, back in 1951, the 5th issue of Apache Kid from Marvel Comics went on sale on this date back in 1951. It sold, of course, it sold for 10 cents, 32 pages. You had 3 Apache Kid features that had the Uprising, the Trail of the Arrow, and Running Moose Strikes, along with a standalone feature, the defeat of Ace Waco. So 75 years ago today, the 5th issue of Apache Kid went on sale on newsstands on this date back in 1951. Now, moving ahead to 1976. 1976, I'd actually like to wish a happy birthday happy 50th birthday to, as soon as I pull her name up here, of course, to Carrie Keranen, American voice actress, production manager, producer, and voice director. Of course, some of our credits include Mitski and Kappa Mikey, Ellen's Mom and Ellen's Acres, Mami Tomoe in Puella Magi Madoka Magica, Aaliyah Cesare in Miraculous Tales of Ladybug, Cat Noir, Sailor Galaxia in the Viz Media Sailor Moon dubs. Also, of course, she has, of course, some, she was also Casca in the Central Park Media dub of the 1997 Berserk series. Also was the English dub voice for the NYAV Post dub of Goku-sen. She voiced Kumiko, who was the English voice for Kumiko Yamaguchi, the, of course, Yakuza heiress, who also and high school teacher in the show. So happy 50th birthday to Carrie Keranen. Now moving ahead to the year 2016. As on this date in the year 2016. On this date in the year 2016, Nippon Animation's Sinbad Maho no Lamp to Ugoku Shima premiered in Japanese theaters. On this date in 2016, 10 years ago today. Also known as Sinbad the Magical Lamp and the Moving Island. The film is the second in a trilogy, the first being Sinbad Sora Tobu Hime to Himitsu no Shima. So, the Nippon Animation Sinbad the Magical Lamp and the Moving Island premiered in Japanese theaters on this date 10 years ago today, and back in 2016. And finally, in the year 2021, as soon as I pull that up, of course. Finally, in the year 2021, Impact Wrestling's the Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill pay-per-view was held at Skyway Studios in Nashville, Tennessee, on this date 5 years ago, back in 2021. Hard to Kill 2021 was a professional wrestling pay-per-view event produced by Impact Wrestling. It took place on this date back in 2021, Skyway Studios. It was the second event under the Hard to Kill chronology. The event crowned the first Impact Knockouts Tag Team Champions since its previous deactivation in 2013. So let's look at the results. Some of the results. The show, of course, the pre-show opened up with Brian Myers defeating Josh Alexander in 10 minutes. Some of the other key matchups that happened during the night, and saw a mixed tag match open up with members of Decay of Rosemary and Crazy Steve defeating Tennille Dashwheel and Caleb with a K. In other action, Kira Hogan and Tasha Steelz, Fire and Flava, as they were known, defeated the team of Jessica Havoc and Neva to become the new Impact Knockouts Tag Team Champions. Matt Cardona defeated Ace Austin via DQ. Manic retained the X Division title over Chris Bay and Rohit Raju in a triple threat match. In a match for the Impact Knockouts Championship, Deonna Purrazzo defeated Taya Valkyrie, who had Rosemary and Crazy Steve in her corner. Eddie Edwards defeated Sami Callihan in a barbed wire massacre match. And the main event saw Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers, with Don Callis in the corner, defeat the team of Rich Swann, Moose, and Chris Sabin in a 6-man tag match. So that's all I got for you guys tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll be back here Sunday so this Sunday I will be joined by Rex Christian from Double Flyer Momentum, as we'll be taking another trip down Comics History Lane. We'll be looking at comics went on sale in July of 1940. We'll be looking at comics that went on sale for Novel Press, looking at Blue Bolt Volume 1, Issue 4, and Target Volume 1, Issue 8. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here on Sunday. Bye.